Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here based on one of your newer suggestions. This one having to do with a very fascinating one. This is why I love doing these videos, is because I get to find such interesting, such original, such absolutely captivating stuff that I would have never heard of before, and I'm sure a lot of you out there would feel the same way, that when you come across info like this, it makes you wonder, how on earth did this happen? How on earth did it take place within a certain location? And it's so great, the information involved in this. In this case, it has to do with a phenomenon that gripped the nation. It seemed like it gripped certain parts of Europe throughout the 14th and 17th century, and it went by a very distinct name. It was known as the medieval Dance Mania, also known though as St. John's Dance, but more historically known as the St. Vitus dance. And in essence, all it was something involving a phenomenon that gripped people, where they started to dance so hysterically they couldn't stop. They would either end up passing out, or in some cases dying, because of these uncontrollable urges. So amazing stuff. Again, so fascinating. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this, known again as the medieval dance mania. So what was this phenomenon? Well, again, you have to go back in time to around 14th and maybe 17th century there in Europe to know about these outbreaks. And I guess the earliest known instance, or one of the most well-known instances, happened specifically on the 24th of June 1374. Amazing, right? Almost 700 years back. It's just crazy how far back this is. But yes, if you go there to Germany, specifically a place called Aachen, Germany, that's when this thing occurred. So in essence, somewhere along the way, there must have been an origin, there must have been a point of center, something that caused this at the very beginning, and then it just grew. But some people would then start dancing hysterically, like dancing, like what you would imagine people dance. Some people dance well, some people dance very bad, but imagine a small group of people dancing uncontrollably, and then growing to a larger group of people, and then growing into even more, so much so that it would reach apparently in the thousands. Imagine thousands of people within this city dancing all at once and not having anything that they can do to stop it. I know you're scratching your head wondering, like, why can't they just simply stop? Was there music playing? Was there something else controlling them? Who knows? But that's the way the story goes with regards to this medieval dance mania. The people would start dancing, they could not stop, they would do so for hours. I imagine that in some cases, some of them were more in control of their body than others, because the way this tale continues, some of them would dance only for hours and then they would stop. Others would dance for days and then they would stop. Maybe they would take a break. Maybe they would just pass out and their body would just basically fall on the ground, and then that was it. But when they awoke, they would continue dancing. And this would sometimes go on for months, if you can believe that. Months of actual dancing. And this was the most fatal ones, because in this case, they were so exhausted, so just completely defeated by all this movement, that afterwards they would die of a heart attack or of a stroke. And if you got caught up in this, then apparently you could not stop. I just can't fathom it. I wonder if any of you out there can visualize that, like in your own head. Like, imagine you're seeing a slow number of people, like a wave, suddenly start dancing. The one person dances, the other one dances, and then the next person, as they get closer to you, you start realizing that it's coming towards you, and then it gets you. And when that happens, then you're dancing and you can't do anything about it, unless you happen to be, I guess, one of those lucky ones that happens to be able to stop on your own just randomly, as opposed to the unlucky ones that again could not do anything. But yes, this gripped multiple parts of Europe afterward. This occurred, for example, in Italy, in Luxembourg, in France, in Holland, in Switzerland. All of this happened starting there, again in the 14th century, and then extending towards the 17th century. Just absolutely amazing. If I haven't not heard of this before, and this phenomenon, it just makes me wonder again how wonderful this info is when I come across these videos. Now, as far as if you're wondering like how did this happen, what made this occur, there are several theories for it, and I'm siding with one of them in particular. In this case, the most common theory scientifically is that it's simply nothing but hallucinations and convulsions coming from, in a loose sense, poisoning, because apparently in those areas they were rife with floods, and when that would occur, there would be this fungus known as Claviceps purpura, if I'm saying that correctly, that would travel just naturally with those floods, and then that fungus would get across areas that it normally wouldn't. Maybe it would be introduced to new parts of towns, or maybe it would be introduced to food, and then that food would travel from one location to another, just continue spreading. In other words, its effects. And what this thing would do, it would essentially be a psychoactive chemical. No, probably it was what was considered was a precursor of LSD. So if you can imagine, in this case, an outbreak of something like this, of this fungus spreading through a new town just by the nature of travel, like through people, through animals, through wind, or in this case through the flood. And then once it would get there, then one person would be affected, and then just by traveling themselves, it would impact others, and then it would just grow from there. I think this makes the most sense. It just seems like you would, like, just like in this case a flu epidemic, or something else, malaria, or even back then like cholera, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that spreads just naturally through the course of travel, and I think something like this would work as well. And because of its psychoactive components, I mean, it would cause people, the way that this fungus works, it would cause them to have nervous spasms, delusions, convulsions as well, hallucinations too. And so what would look like dancing to us would actually be these people suffering from these symptoms. And then after they would get over it, then that's when the fungus would just die or be moved or whatever is the case, and then that would end that location. So doesn't that make sense? I think so. And that's why I believe that this is the most common cause. Another cause, though, seems to be more on the religious side, more on the faith, the belief side, and there's a reason why it was called the St. John's Dance. It has to do with the notion that somewhere along the way there was a curse that was placed upon certain parts of Europe. Maybe it was done by a priest, maybe it was done by a religious sect. Whatever was the case, the curse was placed that those, I guess, who did bad, or those who did something wrong within an area, they would not be considered to have favor on the divine side, and so this curse would cause these symptoms. And then those who, I guess, were on the wrong side of things, like the evildoers or those that were doing bad things, then those were the ones that were falling under these conditions. So maybe that's another part there, but again, that's the whole idea with regards to why it was called St. John's Dance. It was simply followers of a religious sect that were being impacted because of their sins, and so because of it, that's why it would spread from one person to another. So that's just another angle, in other words, if you want to look at it. Finally, there's another one that kind of makes sense if you look at it from a more contemporary standpoint, and it has to do with a notion of it being nothing more than a social epidemic, I guess is the closest thing you could call it. Almost like that group think theory, but in this case it's known as mass psychogenic illness. And that's where if people see others doing something, and in this case especially those that are maybe more religious or more prone to copying others in order to join them, then some person would start something and then others would follow it afterward. And then afterwards there would be a large group of people having a social influence, as it was considered, from one part of town to another. If you wanted to look at it as another way, you're thinking, well, how's that going to happen? To this very day, for example, if you had a room of 100 people and one person sneezes, what does everybody do? They say, God bless you, right? So there's nothing really that is impacting the sneeze before or after saying God bless you, but it's just customary. Everybody says it all at once. It just grows, in other words, from there. So I think something along those lines would be here too, where on a weird social phenomenon level, almost like a modern day Facebook type thing. Here in this case, one person saw it, it became popular, other people started copying it, then others copied it because it just gained popularity, and then that's where it went and grew from there. So I don't know though. I still believe more along the lines of the fungus theory, because of the physical effects on the body and how it would make it look like it was a dance and they would have no control over it. I think something like that is definitely occurring. But yes, that's all the info associated with this medieval dance mania. Isn't that crazy? Again, the whole idea that there was thousands of people that could not control their body, and because of it, some of them would even die outright. If anybody has any more info, anything else to share, please post those comments below. That'd be really, really great to hear. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.